Hi, everyone. It really means a lot. My name is Elijah Nichols. I go to East Puffer High School, and I am a student activist within the Muskegon area. And a few months ago, a month and a half ago, I was a student activist in DC. So that was an awesome experience. I got to meet with Representative Huizenga and really talk about our concerns, I guess. um, I'm the president of my school's Gay Student Alliance. I am the co-founder of the Youth Activism Coalition within Muskegon. It's a group that I created with my friend Leah Daiga because we realized that students really need a voice in these trying times. So again, thank you for having me, and I'm excited to share my message with all of you. So from the age of 6 to about 15, I thought the world was out to get me. At age 6, my students were stealing my toys. By the age of 8, people were calling me feminine. People were saying, oh, you have too high of a voice. We're not going to be friends with you. At age 11, I weighed 200 pounds, and I decided to eat my feelings. People deemed it, oh, you can't live this way. You're fat, you're unattractive, and it really took a damper on how I viewed myself. At age 14, I started to come to terms with the fact that I am gay. And I realized also that there is a whole entire society and system that seems to be working against me and my people. Now, I have a question for some of you. Feel comfortable to just blurt it out or just, talk about it. What was something growing up that made you feel like the world was maybe out to get you, or something that made you not feel comfortable with yourself? It's a reality. Yeah. Yeah. 4 eyes, too tall. Yeah. Mm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's really good to see that we all can be connected with the fact that we've been bullied or that we've had some sort of trying times and personal realization of how other people view us. To try to cope with these feelings that I had when I was younger, and especially in my middle school years, I took to a lot of self-harm, and I happened to have an undiagnosed eating disorder. So I would binge and I would purge, and I wouldn't tell my family about it, but it's a reality that I had to deal with. And one day I just kind of woke up and I was like, why isn't anything changing? I hate myself so much, and I'm doing these things that I thought would change me, but I still wake up in the morning and I don't want to live every day. I realized that these actions, they weren't changing anything about myself and how I feel, and they weren't changing the system and the society which I live in. The system that doesn't allow me to have the right to maybe give blood if I wanted to, or the system that doesn't allow me to go to a certain agency to adopt someone, or certain, at the time, marriage wasn't out there for me. Say if I wanted to, I know at the age of 14 I probably wanted to get married, but at that time I was not allowed to get married and my people were neither. Thankfully, when same-sex marriage was legalized, helped me to feel a little more comfortable with myself, and I'm sure for people across the nation. So I think that changing point in my life really happened at the age of 15. I started to talk to myself and the world around me, and then I did the 3 steps that I now realize I call the 3 steps to self-love. The 3 steps is finding yourself. The second one is understanding your identity, and the third one is to stop looking for other people's approval. These things really took a very, very long time, and I still struggle with them today because, when I'm out there protesting or when I'm on the news or I'm doing something, there's always going to be people opposing me, and they can say some really crazy, crazy stuff. So it took such a long time to get to this point of self-love that I didn't even know if I was going to be able to walk across our graduation stage, which I'll be doing in 2 weeks, which I'm really excited about, to graduate finally. Woo, thank you. I didn't know if I was going to live to get my license or to even have my first boyfriend, and I got through all those, so that's fun. Yeah. Yeah. So this first step to finding my self-love within myself to help me feel comfortable really was about identifying where I was. So, me as a gay person, I happen to find myself in the closet. Yeah. So, to sort of understand, to kind of venture through the closet and how to make my way to that door and finally step out, I had to go to my school's Gay Straight Alliance. And at the time, I was identifying as straight, but I was still messing around with the labels and trying to understand myself and maybe, oh, maybe I am bisexual, maybe I am blah, 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 just really talking to other queer people and how they identify. I think one of the biggest factors in me feeling comfortable with myself was the Gay Straight Alliance and the people that I surrounded myself in that time. Because when I went to my school's Gay Straight Alliance, I happened to meet some loving, loving people that they were like, you know what? You can be who you want to be. It doesn't really matter. You're still a human being. Identify as whatever you want. It's a spectrum. And so when I started talking to my friend Kelly at the time, she is the vice president of our Gay Straight Alliance, and I'm so grateful for her. We've done so much work together, and we've really been about educating our community on the LGBT spectrum. My friend Kelly, she happened to be in the hospital at the time. I called her up, and I was like, hey, I've been doing some self-realization, and I think I'm gay. And she was like, aw, Eli, I know. So I find it quite funny. And last night I was at our house. We were doing the stereotypical queer thing, and we're watching RuPaul's Drag Race because she enjoys that show. And we're having a good time, eating all our Alfredo that my mom bought, and she didn't know because I was supposed to make it for her, but I made it for Kelly and I. Yeah, I'm so grateful for finding myself through other people and through the communities that I've involved myself in. And one of the biggest moments that I realized that it's okay to be who I am as a gay person was when I decided to do a poem in front of my whole entire school at our talent show. It was about 2.5 years ago now, and it was about being in the closet, and that's how I came out to my whole entire school, which our auditorium fit between 1,000 and 2,000 people. And so I decided to go big, make it known, and oh, it's such a cringy poem. I don't want to think about it, but it meant a lot to me at the time, and I'm so grateful for that experience. But I remember afterwards, something really meaningful happened. A student came up to me and said, thank you so much for what you just talked about. What you did really helped my sister to understand who she is as a person. And she recently came out to her parents, and her parents were not accepting at all. But I think when her family was there and she was sitting next to her family, the student and the family sort of realized that, there's other queer people out there, and there's other people who identify as something other than straight. And from that moment on, I knew that I wanted to change the world, and I wanted to make it a better place for everyone who identifies as queer, or for someone who does not fit the spectrum, or for someone who doesn't really fit in this cis, straight, white world. So that helped me to keep going in my time of still understanding who I was as a gay person and who I was just as a general human being. The second step to self-love is understanding your identity. I like to call this phase, I'm gay, but now what? Because, your sexuality and your gender doesn't define you as a whole person, it's only a piece of you. So when I was doing some soul searching and trying to understand who I was as a person, I realized a few things about myself. I love movies. I happened to watch a lot of movies in the time of soul searching. And then I loved people, I loved learning, I loved performing, and again, I wanted to change the world and make it a better place. Two of these are really connected because when I watch movies, I happen to search for movies that show more diversity and different ways of thinking so I can help to understand the world. And then I love people so much and I love learning that I just wanted to learn about people and why they think the way they do. And then I think I Want to Change the World really connects all of these things that I had in my life going on at the time, because I realize now is my time to stand up, and it's time to make it known who I am so others can feel comfortable, but as well as make myself feel comfortable on this stage and on the stage of life and on the stage of my high school theater. And When I say I want to change the world, it's not that I want to change every single thing about it and just start over. Like that's the dream, like just have like a whole new world. But I know it's not a reality. I want to, something I realized this morning when we were having a discussion, is I want to open up the world. I want the world to become more compassionate, empathetic, and to have conversation with other people. And when I think about wanting to change the world, I think of a quote that a piece of it is up there. Be the change you wish to see in the world. It's from Gandhi, at least that's what the internet told me. The internet isn't always true, but hopefully it is in this case, so I don't look silly. But when I hear be the change you wish to see in the world, I hear be your authentic self. And for me, that happens to be a gay, queer person who doesn't really fall on that spectrum of like straight, it's the spectrum of LGBT, as well as being my authentic self of standing up for others. When I hear be the change you wish to see in the world, I hear that these evils that you have in your past, Eli, of having an eating disorder or self-harm or all these negative things in my life that were going on, I hear these evils were meant to build a bridge of empathy to help others. You see, if I wouldn't have gone through these bad things, I don't know if I would be up on this stage right now. I don't know if I'd be up protesting in the streets saying, this is not just, we need to make sure that this is changed. We need to make sure that everyone gets healthcare. We need to make sure that everyone does all these different things. And it's controversial, but if I didn't go through these evils and I didn't know where people were coming from, then I wouldn't have empathy and compassion to fight for others. When I hear, be the change you wish to see in the world, I hear, we can help people. I think when I want to change the world, that's what I want to do. I want to help people. I don't want to change the world just to benefit the 1% or just myself or really even just the LGBT community. I want to make sure that it benefits everyone, that everyone's getting a piece of the pie. It's not just a few percentage at the top. It's not just a few select people. It's not just my community, but it's all communities across the US, across the world, and across the universe, because I believe aliens exist. This third step to self-love is something that I deal with now, and it's probably never going to stop since I want to give my life to changing the world and being a public servant, but not looking for other people's approval. It's really been a journey, especially recently with the whole gun control debate, but it gets hard at sometimes. It's definitely the hardest, hardest of the three-step process that I deem necessary. When I talk about LGBT issues in my community and I fight for those causes, which it's been happening for the last 2 years, I've been so open about it, I hear things like, oh, you're just a snowflake, and excuse my language, but they'll just throw the word faggot at me, and they'll say awful, awful things, and these are definitely not the worst. They'll say, oh, you're just another liberal, you're just a crybaby, you know, you don't, it's all emotion. And I used to get hurt by it, but now I just kind of laugh it off. I'm like, oh, okay, call me what you want, at least I know that I love people. I think I've come to that realization that you can call me a communist, you can call me whatever you want, but I love everyone. I love you. Thank you for calling me that. I really appreciate you having a conversation with me. Recently, with this whole gun control debate, it seems as if it's struck a nerve in people. It's become very, very personal to them. I've had people stalk all my social media and message me with very strange threats. I've had people say, how do you support Planned Parenthood when they kill 90 million babies a year and guns kill 2 people a year? Some outrageous numbers that don't really exist. And I hear that and I'm like, okay, I know where you stand on this one. I'm not even going to try to talk about it. I hear things like, quote, go sniff some condoms, which, yeah, I know. It's very strange. People are weird. I hear things like, useful idiots. It was definitely a mess up on words from their parts, but the Facebook comments crack me up. It's hard not to read them sometimes. I hear things about, yeah, I hear comments from higher up officials calling me a liar. And you know what? I say to that, I appreciate it because it just gives me more motivation to keep going and fighting for what I deem as right. I realized with all of this going on, with not looking for other people's approval and trying to channel people's approval when I need it, because I do need my mom and I need Sherry and I need Sage and I need their approval because they're the people that helped me grow up to be the person I am today. I realized that those people's approval matter sometimes, not all the time, because I'm gonna do what I want to do. Yeah, a little story time about that. My mom told me one time she didn't want me to go to a protest. I did anyways, and now I'm doing protests all the time and she can't stop me, but she supports me and I'm grateful for it. But when we have this good approval happening, it's amazing. But we always have these people who are going to be telling me to sniff some condoms or do whatever. They're going to be emailing me and messaging me and commenting on articles saying these awful negative things. And no matter how dehumanizing it is, I still have to realize that they're a person and I'm a person. We have this common humanity. It's something that we talked about this morning, that we're still humans no matter what that person believes. And sometimes we have to separate this behavior of very, very rude words and actions and just realize they're human, they're hurting, we're all living in the same society. And we have to learn how to connect with the human, not these evil actions. So I want to thank you for everyone that was in that conversation earlier this morning. I want to thank you because it's really opened up my heart within just the last hour, because they're not looking for my approval and I'm not looking for their approval, and I think that's good. No matter our intentions as human beings, and me as an activist, a student activist, and being a young person and living in this mass shooting generation, I've realized that people will oppose you no matter what. I could be fighting for something as simple as, oh, you deserve to be able to eat a banana for lunch. And people say, oh, well, I like pears more than that. It's very silly, but it happens. I see students do it all the time, and I see adults do it on the comment section. So going back to the entirety of the three steps to self-love is finding yourself, understanding your identity, and stop looking for approval. These things take a very long time, and I'm lucky enough to have the support system again to help with these steps to become the person I am today. So, I created the change within myself with self-love before I stepped out into the world and decided, you know what, I'm going to change the world and I'm going to make it a better place. When we go back to this idea of be the change you wish to see in the world, I realize now that my love, this self-love, I had to create this change within myself. I had to create self-love. And now, as I'm working and as I go out into the world, as I study in DC and in Fairfax, Virginia, I am going to be creating the love in the world. It's going to be within myself, and I'm going to be able to project it onto others. I think that's one of the greatest gifts that life has given me, that if I want to change myself, if I want to change the world, then it has to be together. And we have to create love between one another, whether it's me with a complete stranger or it's me with someone who's hating me. I just have to create a love within myself, and I have to create a love between the both of us. Because nothing's ever going to change if we don't have love in the world. So now, I realize having the self-love and trying my best to create love within my community, that, you know what? I can change the world, and I can open up the world to see different perspectives. And when I created this group with my friend Leah, the Youth Activism Coalition, our goal was to get youth involved in the community and to have youth in politics. And our underlying message was always love, because I believe that my generation is very open-minded, and we love to love. We want to make sure that everyone feels accepted. I love my generation so much, but obviously, yeah, there's going to be a few people in my generation who will always oppose everything about me, which I'm okay with. We need diversity of thought. So the Youth Activism Coalition, we've held a couple protests. We did one about public education funding. We've done one about gun legislation. And both of these are about making the world a better place. It's about building that love within our communities. I don't want my friends to be shot in school. I think it's that simple. I don't think anyone wants that for their children, to have their friends and their teachers to be shot in school. But I also realize when I'm working on this issue and dedicating my life to it now, that yes, it's a school issue, but it's a community issue as well. And that we may not be able to bring guns onto campuses, but we're allowed to bring guns onto the streets. And most shootings happen on the streets and within our homes with domestic violence. And I think going through this process of learning about the issue and learning about the evils of the world and to understand everything that's happening, it's an issue of a lack of love. And I thought that I was dedicating my life to changing the world, and I think it's sort of a self-realization moment even right now that like I'm dedicating my life to love and to people and to making sure that it's changed for the better but more open. I'm gonna just completely stop using the word change. I just want to open. Again, thank you. With the Gay Straight Alliance, I think that's been the message since the beginning of GLSEN's goal to have more, which is the Gay, Lesbian, Straight Education Network, I think. Oh God, I'm a bad president. Yeah, I think their message has always been to spread love, compassion, empathy. And my work as the president of the Gay Straight Alliance for the last 2 years, and the year before that, I was the vice president, has been to open up to the community, open our doors up, so people understand who the LGBT community is, especially as LGBT youth who we are. We've done things such as host 2 public events to raise money for inclusive books for children, because as a board, we realized that these instilled ideas in ourselves of, like gay is not okay or straight is the way to go type of thing, it's really because of the society that we grew up in. And our goal is to open the society up to, to more ideas on that maybe it's not just straight and maybe it's not just gay, that there's a whole entire spectrum of things. And the same goes with gender. We want to make sure that people understand that gender is a spectrum and that there's a whole, the people are unique. There's a whole section of gender and sexuality that we haven't even explored yet because, society isn't there yet. But luckily, I'm living in such an open generation. I know it can only get better forward. So that's awesome. Something else that my Gay Straight Alliance is doing is making sure that we have a safe space for LGBT people, LGBT youth specifically, to come together and to talk about their issues. Because sometimes, I talked about these three steps to self-love. You have to have moments of self-realization in these 3 steps. A lot of it is that. I think the GSA at my school is a safe harbor for LGBT youth. Because when we're walking through in the hallways, I remember holding hands with my first boyfriend in the hallway, and I got pushed down. And I was just like, what the heck? Why is this happening, Like I'm just being my authentic self. But apparently some people, they're like, whoa, no gay for me. It's really strange, but I think having these safe spaces for people is very, very important. Another way that I've reflected my love for myself that we all need dearly onto the world and make sure that love is pushed everywhere is that community involvement. I want to make sure that this love that I feel for my family and myself and my friends is shared with everyone in the community. And it's not just going out and protesting. It's a great thing to do because it gets people riled up and ready to vote and ready to do things about changing the world, opening the world. Community involvement really helps you to empathize with others. Yes, I am gay and I'm out, and I have friends who are not white, and I have friends who are not gay, I have friends who are not cisgendered, but I think really getting down in the dirt of things, going to a community that may not be as as wealthy as your home life, because I'm very privileged, going to a not so privileged area, and just trying to understand. We have this as a white person, I have this. I'm inherently racist. That's the reality of the situation. The system, I benefit from it, and I have to work to change the system. I have to use my privilege. But as a white person, I'm inherently racist. And my goal for myself every single day is to wake up and to understand where other people are coming from and to empathize with other people, but to also not use my white superiority, man superiority complex to hinder this movement of racial equality and racial justice. And I think this community involvement has really helped me to humanize other people and to understand where other people are coming from. My time of suffering about myself is now used to fight for others. I'm so, so grateful for the things that I've been through. Even though they are god-awful things, I can say that I'm grateful that these things happened. I'm glad I didn't die when I thought I was going to die. I'm glad I didn't go through with the decisions. I'm glad I'm up here speaking today in front of you people. Thank you so much for coming again. Thank you. Thank you for clapping. You're awesome. Yeah. Let's give a clap for you. Yeah. Woo, leader. I like that. No, I just, again, I'm grateful for the people who take their suffering and turn it into something amazing. Like the students at Stoneman Douglas. I'm so, so grateful for them. I performed Friday night in my last Pops concert ever at my school. And my song was about taking it to the streets. And, like, taking it to the streets. That song, if you heard it. I dedicated that song to the work that they're doing. And I thanked them for everything that they've done and for uplifting young voices. I want to thank and think about the Pulse nightclub shooting. Like those people, they're hurting still to this day, and so is the Stoneman Douglas students, so is the Virginia Tech students. Like these people are still hurting, but I met someone who went to Virginia Tech when I spoke at the March for Our Lives in Grand Rapids, and I learned her story, and it helped me to empathize and to understand this movement as a whole, and how it's not just young people anymore, it's becoming people who are 25, 26, 27, 30, 35. We're in this movement. Gun violence affects us all, and I'm thankful for everyone that speaks out, because these people are important to this message that we're trying to spread, that we should all be able to live a happy, healthy life. I'm thankful for the students who are writing to newspapers and getting on the news. I'm thankful for the students that are trying to take the time to heal for themselves, because that's a very important part of this movement. Yes, we have to get out there and rally together, but we also have to take the time to heal. Although I've not personally been affected by gun violence, I've seen what it does to people. I live in downtown Muskegon, and when the shooting happened a few weeks ago, some of the students went to the elementary school at Reese Puffer. And it really humbles you to know that that can happen in your own community. And it's also kind of like, wow, it's happening in our community? I feel bad for not noticing it before, because it happens all the time, and it's not reported on, so I don't think it exists. I tell myself, oh yeah, this exists in my community, but the reality of the situation is that it's not as reported as wide as it should be. I think if we had a media that was willing to report every single gun violence death or even gun violence attack, then it would make people realize how big of an issue this is. Because I can come up here and I can go out onto a podium and use my megaphone or my microphone and say, hey, we have on average 96 gun deaths a day, but it's just a number to some people. It doesn't really humanize that number, and we need to humanize that number. From a young person growing up in the mass shooting generation, I had to realize fast that nothing is going to change if I don't do something about it. So, with that being said, if I wouldn't have gotten up here today and used my voice as a young person, I maybe wouldn't be able to affect how you may think of young people, or to get you to speak out and to try to empathize with young people, even if they're wrong, because sometimes we can be wrong, just like older generations can be wrong about things too. But being a part of this mass shooting generation, I like to use that term because I really think that it humanizes the situation and makes it a reality for everyone. Because I've lived every single moment of my education thinking that someone could walk into my school and we were gonna die. And when I was watching an interview from a student a few days ago at the Texas shooting, she wasn't surprised. She was like, "It's bound to happen here," which really affects the way I handle the situation too. Because when I'm up here and I'm talking about gun violence or I'm out using my megaphone, it's just sad that students have to feel like this and that people living in a home where domestic abuse is prevalent. It's sad that these things have to happen today, but it's a reality and we have to face that reality. And I think that goes back to the self-love. I had to face the reality within myself that these evils that I was dealing with, whether it was with an eating disorder, whether it was with self-harm, whether it was with the bullying, these aren't defining who I am, and these evils are becoming necessary to make sure that this movement is going to happen of equality and of justice and of every situation that is known. So, I don't know if it's been 20 minutes, but again, thank you for having me speak. And we are the leaders of our own well-being, and we can all soon be the leaders of the well-being of everyone. So I hope you take that message and use it every single day. Thank you.